For decades, Americans have called their homeland the land of opportunity. But north of the border, a quieter nation built something extraordinary, a society that many Americans secretly envy. Traffic hums gently through clean city streets. Families sip coffee on patios where strangers still greet one another. Canada feels calmer, less burdened by division. Its citizens may not always be wealthier on paper, yet they live longer, laugh more freely, and worry less about the next hospital bill or rent hike. Across the border, many look north and wonder, what is Canada doing right? This story explores that answer, a truth measured not only in statistics, but in the rhythm of daily life. Strip away slogans and politics, and a pattern appears. A nation proving that decency, balance, and foresight can build a stronger dream. Chapter 1. The Quality of Life. Divide. Every index that measures how people actually live, not just how much they earn, tells the same story in 2025. Canada's blend of universal healthcare, accessible education, and social trust places it comfortably ahead of the United States in livability rankings. Global surveys consistently list Canada among the world's top 15 nations for quality of life, while the US, still a powerhouse of innovation, sits lower because its prosperity is less evenly shared. Canadians now enjoy an average life expectancy of 83.2 years, nearly 3 years longer than Americans. Those extra years translate into real memories: grandparents at graduations, parents seeing children thrive, retirees hiking on the Bruce Trail instead of fighting insurance paperwork. Longevity in Canada is not luck, it's policy. Decades of public vaccination, nutrition programs, and community-based health funding that treat wellness as a collective mission. A nationwide well-being survey in early 2025 found 72% of Canadians satisfied or very satisfied with life, compared with 59% of Americans. That 13-point gap defines stability. In Canada, basic needs, housing, healthcare, safety, are buffered by social programs. South of the border, millions live one missed paycheck from crisis. Economists say happiness can't be legislated, yet public decisions shape its foundation. Investments in clean water, efficient transit, and renewable power reduce invisible household costs. A Toronto commuter spends about 34 minutes traveling to work versus 55 minutes in New York City or Los Angeles. Those 20 saved minutes each day add up to 90+ hours of regained life each year. Time for family, fitness, or simple rest. Safety underpins it all. Canada's violent crime rate remains roughly 1/3 that of the US. Neighborhoods are walkable and well lit. Policing leans on prevention rather than punishment. Children still walk to school, and major cities like Ottawa and Vancouver consistently appear among the safest in North America. Security may be invisible, but its psychological effect strengthens community confidence. Trust completes the picture. About 60% of Canadians say they trust government to do the right thing most of the time, nearly 20 points higher than Americans. That trust shows in crisis cooperation, during floods, wildfires, or vaccination campaigns. When citizens believe the system works fairly, cynicism turns into participation. Volunteers replace protesters. Wealth inequality is the hidden engine of discontent, and here too the difference is stark. In 2025, Canada's top 10% hold about half the nation's wealth. In the US, the top 10% control over 70%. A Canadian middle-income family can still afford a modest home, healthcare, and education without sinking into debt. Equality of access, if not of outcome, remains Canada's quiet triumph. Ultimately, the quality of life divide is not about who earns more, but who spends wiser. Canada channels collective wealth into infrastructure that benefits all: hospitals, parks, libraries, while America often privatizes those same necessities. In doing so, Canadians prove that freedom isn't only the absence of government, It's the presence of security, health, and time. Chapter 2. Money, wages, and the middle-class reality. True prosperity isn't written in stock indexes. It's felt in kitchens and at the end of each pay period. In 2025, the average full-time Canadian earns roughly $65,000 CAD a year. Yet that number stretches further because essential costs, especially health insurance, are largely public. While an American family spends $5,000 to $6,000 USD annually on premiums and deductibles, Canadian families use those same dollars for groceries, savings, or a family vacation. When economists adjust for purchasing power, Canadian households retain more real disposable income. A couple earning $80,000 CAD after tax in Halifax or Winnipeg can live securely. An American couple making $70,000 USD in a comparable city often faces childcare costs that rival a mortgage. Slightly higher Canadian taxes return concrete benefits, childcare rebates, healthcare, public transit that Americans must buy privately. Inflation tells the same story. By spring 2025, Canada's Consumer Price Index settled near 2.6%. The US held around 3.4%. That 1-point gap means steadier grocery prices and calmer rent renewals. The Canadian dollar, trading close to 0.74 USD, has stabilized imports like fuel and produce, protecting families from shocks. Behind that calm lies regulation. After 2008, Ottawa strengthened mortgage stress tests and required banks to hold larger capital reserves. Those safeguards remain, preventing the credit bubbles that still burst periodically on Wall Street. Average U.S. credit card debt now tops $7,800 USD per person. Canadians carry about £4,900 CAD. The system rewards prudence instead of risk. Minimum wage indexing sustains fairness. Ontario's hourly minimum reached £17.20 CAD in 2025, with most provinces following closely. South of the border, the US federal rate remains £7.25 USD, unchanged since 2009. That discrepancy filters upward. When the floor rises, entry-level wages follow, lifting service and retail communities together. Unemployment hovers near 5.2% in both countries, but job security differs sharply. Canada's employment insurance system, union coverage, and parental leave laws reduce the fear of losing both income and health care at once. In the US, a single layoff can mean losing medical coverage and savings simultaneously. Security fosters creativity. Canadians can risk career changes without risking ruin. Tax debates will always persist, yet most Canadians see the trade-off clearly. Their taxes buy visible goods, roads without potholes, subsidized daycare that saves families thousands, and vaccination programs that avert epidemics. These aren't handouts. They're investments that yield measurable returns in productivity and public health. The Canadian economy prizes balance over excess. Its goal isn't to mint more billionaires, but to prevent desperation. A nation's true wealth is the distribution of dignity, and in that accounting, Canada still runs a steady surplus. Chapter 3. Healthcare and Human Dignity. In Canada, a plastic health card replaces a credit card. Each swipe affirms equality, the same access for banker and barista alike. The system spends about $7,000 CAD per person annually, half the US figure of $13,200 USD, yet yields longer life expectancy and fewer preventable deaths. Every American who has delayed treatment because of cost understands the relief Canadians take for granted. Here, emergency rooms ask for identification, not insurance. Prescriptions for chronic illnesses are increasingly covered through national pharmacare pilots. Medical bankruptcy, common in the US, is almost non-existent. Wait time reform has become a success story. The 2025 national median for elective surgery fell below 21 weeks, the best in a decade, thanks to telemedicine expansion and nurse practitioner networks in rural regions. Provinces share data to allocate resources dynamically, a quiet efficiency rarely noticed because it simply works. Mental health care now stands shoulder to shoulder with physical care. Government-funded counseling and employer wellness credits make early intervention the norm. Since 2022, absenteeism tied to stress has dropped 12% nationwide. Compassion, once seen as soft policy, now measures economic strength. Prevention underpins the entire system. Free annual checkups, vaccination drives, and school nutrition programs keep chronic disease rates lower than America's. Type 2 diabetes and heart disease remain challenges, but incidence per 100,000 people is about 30% lower than in the US. Each avoided illness saves both dollars and dignity. Public health also fuels productivity. With fewer medical debts, consumers spend steadily. Small businesses stay open when owners can afford care. Economists estimate universal coverage adds roughly 2% to national GDP through workforce reliability, a fiscal dividend born of fairness. The moral dividend runs deeper. Knowing that everyone receives care, regardless of wealth, reinforces solidarity. It's a social glue more powerful than any anthem. In clinics from Yellowknife to Windsor, patients of every income share the same waiting room and the same respect. For outsiders, Canada's system appears bureaucratic. In truth, it's built on trust. Collective responsibility liberates individuals from fear. Each time a patient hands over a health card instead of a credit card, the nation reaffirms what it values most: life before profit. Chapter 4: Housing, Debt, and the Cost of Home. Home ownership defines stability, and in 2025, Canada's housing market finally cooled. The national average price sits around $703,000 CAD, up barely 1% from the year before. That leveling signals balance, supply catching demand, and families breathing again. Years of stricter mortgage rules and limits on speculative foreign investment are paying off. Meanwhile, US mortgage rates remain above 6.5%, and rents in major cities jumped by double digits. American home ownership among adults under 35 is shrinking. In Canada, it is stabilizing. Canadian banks can't bet on high-risk loans the way some US lenders still do. The result? Fewer foreclosures and more predictable neighborhoods. Average Canadian household debt now stands near $78,000 CAD versus more than $103,000 USD in the US. When adjusted for income, Canadians owe less because public services shoulder costs Americans finance privately, from education to childcare. Debt here often builds homes. Debt there too often buys breathing space. Inflation relief reaches the essentials. Provincial energy rebates shave hundreds off winter heating. Grocery rebate programs for low-income families cushion food prices. Each policy seems small until you see what it means. More money in local shops, less reliance on credit. First-time buyer initiatives revived optimism among younger Canadians. Shared equity mortgages and tax credits open doors once sealed. Developers are shifting toward mid-density sustainable housing instead of unchecked suburban sprawl. Every finished townhouse represents policy translated into human hope. Renters are finally catching a break. Caps on annual increases and better tenant protections keep urban housing attainable for students, nurses, and new immigrants. Across the border, eviction filings remain high. Canada's predictability, though imperfect, keeps turnover low and communities intact. Culturally, Canada treats housing as a social good, not a speculative game. Markets still matter, but they exist within guardrails. This philosophy doesn't eliminate hardship, it prevents collapse. A stable roof is seen as a foundation for citizenship itself. That foundation preserves community continuity. When teachers, mechanics, and nurses can live near where they work, neighborhoods retain their character. Policy becomes place, and place becomes home. That's the quiet strength of Canada's approach to housing in 2025. Chapter 5. Safety, Community and Trust. Safety is invisible until it fails. Canada's homicide rate remains roughly one-third of America's, and gun deaths hover around 700 a year, compared with over 45,000 in the US. These figures translate into freedom of movement, children walking to school, evening joggers unafraid. Urban Canada ranks among the safest regions on the continent. The reason isn't harsher policing, but smarter prevention. Youth employment grants, rehabilitation centres, and community officers who solve problems before they erupt. This model costs less and builds trust. Trust in institutions is the core difference. 61% of Canadians express confidence in local authorities versus about 42% of Americans. Transparency, public budget portals, citizen oversight boards keeps that trust alive. When citizens believe the system is fair, they collaborate instead of confront. The opioid crisis still casts a shadow, yet Canada's response is shifting from punishment to prevention. National harm reduction programs cut fatal overdoses by about 11% since 2024. Treating addiction as a health issue frees law enforcement resources and saves lives. Volunteerism magnifies this safety net. Canada ranks top 10 worldwide for community service hours. From snow-clearing neighbours to food bank workers, citizens invest personal time in collective security. The result is not just cleaner streets but shared ownership of public well-being. Civility also plays a role. Political debates here are spirited but rarely violent. Protests end in clean-up drives, not riot reports. That temperament springs from a national belief that disagreement is part of dialogue, not evidence of enemy lines. Economic inclusion acts as crime prevention. Universal health care, unemployment insurance and pensions keep desperation low. When basic needs are met, citizens are less tempted by illegal alternatives. Peace becomes a policy outcome. Ultimately, Canada's greatest law enforcement asset is trust. It's the social glue that allows diverse cultures to coexist without fear. Where many nations fortify borders, Canada fortifies belief in each other, and that remains its most valuable defense. Chapter 6. Environment, Freedom and Balance. The American dream glorifies acceleration. Faster cars, higher towers, longer hours. The Canadian dream moves differently. Cleaner air, quieter mornings, and weekends that still belong to families. In 2025, this difference is measured in oxygen levels and heart rates. Nearly 90% of Canada's electricity now comes from non-emitting sources, primarily hydro and nuclear, while the US grid still burns fossil fuels for about 60% of its supply. That contrast fills the lungs. Vancouver's air quality index averages half that of Los Angeles. Policy built on stewardship becomes an inheritance of health. Remote work, adopted by about 40% of Canadian employees, cuts commuting emissions by millions of tons each year. Broadband expansion into rural provinces ensures equality of access. Fewer cars on highways mean clearer skies and calmer minds. Freedom here isn't the right to burn more, it's the right to breathe more easily. Cities mirror this ethos. Toronto plants over 500,000 new trees annually. Montreal's recycling rate has topped 60%. Urban forests cool streets and absorb pollution, proving that environmental policy can double as public comfort. Work-life balance is another climate of its own. Canadians enjoy roughly 1.4 more leisure hours per day than Americans. Federal law guarantees at least 2 paid vacation weeks, with most employers offering 4. In the US, 1 in 4 workers receives none. The difference shows in stress statistics and smiles per street corner. Family policies sustain this rhythm. Parents can share up to 18 months of paid leave, and pilot projects for 4-day work weeks are expanding across sectors. Employee burnout rates are 20% lower than similar American workplaces. Fewer hours, greater output. Proof that rest fuels productivity. Outdoor life anchors national identity. From Banff to Fundy, national parks welcomed over 30 million visits in 2025. Each hike and skate reminds citizens that prosperity without peace of mind is poverty by another name. Freedom, in the end, means balance. The ability to earn, breathe, and belong all at once. Canada's success story is not of dominance, but of harmony. A nation choosing steady light over constant blaze. Chapter 7. The truth Americans don't want to admit. Quietly, Americans already know. Immigration data show nearly 400,000 U.S. citizens have relocated north over the past 5 years, drawn by healthcare, stability, and peace. They expect colder weather but discover warmer communities. Each new resident is a confession that the Canadian model works. The newcomers feel it instantly. Streets calmer, bureaucracy gentler, neighbors kinder. Simple interactions, a cashier's thanks or a stranger holding the door, reveal a civic culture built on mutual respect. Systems function because people believe in them. Moderation is Canada's hidden superpower. Politics drifts left or right, but rarely toward chaos. Healthcare reform and fiscal discipline share space at the same table. While US discourse burns, Canada debates, then votes, adjusts, and moves on. Economic envy grows louder. The typical Canadian household enjoys reliable broadband, affordable medication, and accessible transit within reach of home. Americans may earn higher nominal wages but spend more on survival. Wealth on paper cannot replace security in practice. Cultural tone matters too. Canadian media uplifts civility. American media monetizes outrage. In 2025's World Happiness Report, Canada ranked 13th, the US 23rd. Joy, it turns out, is renewable, and Canada manages it sustainably. No society is flawless. Healthcare wait times, northern isolation, and cost of living pockets persist. But Canada confronts flaws with transparency. Televised parliamentary inquiries, independent auditors, and citizens who still believe criticism is patriotism. What Americans envy most isn't maple syrup or hockey, it's serenity. A nation confident enough not to shout. Canada doesn't demand recognition. It earns it quietly through clean air, safe streets, long lives, and open hearts. As both nations move deeper into this century, they remain partners and rivals, but the moral of their shared story is clear. While the United States chases greatness, Canada has chosen goodness, and in the end, goodness endures longer. If this made you proud to be Canadian, or made you curious about what Canada's doing right, hit like, share this video, and subscribe for more stories about the Great North. Because the world is watching, and quietly, so is America. The score swells as the maple leaf fades into the golden northern sky, a closing image of calm strength and enduring light.